This is News from a Different View in association with the Dayton Weekly News. Today we have four outstanding men of God who are with us today to talk about subjects pertaining to the African American community. We have Dr. Carlton Williams of Mount Olive Baptist Church to my right. We have Dr. Durrell Ward of Omega Baptist Church. We have Dr. Jamerson Hunter from Macedonia Baptist Church, and we have Dr. William Harris from Believers Christian Fellowship Church here in Dayton. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you out this afternoon.
Good to be here.
Okay.
Great to be here.
You know, there are a lot of things going on, and the church is the pivotal point of many of those things, and particularly in the African American community. Today our subject is the black church in the urban community. What does it do? What does it mean? I'm going to start with Dr. Harris here. Just tell me briefly your analogy. What do you think the role of the African American church is in the black community?
Well, Don, I think the number one, the role of the church is, of course, to win souls for Christ. Number one, that's the mandate that we have as churches to save souls. Secondly, we also have to deal with human hurt, need, the issues that we face. We often call it a social gospel, right. And that is that we're concerned about the whole person, right. So that the church can't just be the worship center. Mm-hmm. That's critical, that's important, that's one part of it. But the church must also deal with its members and the environment in which they live and circumstances that they face every day. So if there's, for example, you know, we've got drive-by shootings, we've got foreclosures, these things we face and our members face. Therefore, the church must address those type of issues because we're concerned about the quality of life for all people.
Dr. Hunter. Dr. Hunter is the youngest member around the table and one of the newest members to our community from Macedonia. What's your feeling? What's your thought about the role of the black church today?
I feel that my friend and colleague, Dr. Harris, is on it, that our role is still of importance. We have to be that sense of hope when you look at the degradation of our communities and how our communities are dying, especially urban communities. Our church has to set that standard that there's still life in the midst of a valley of dry bones, and that God is still alive and he's still speaking to the total person, the whole individual, holistically. I feel that the church has to embrace what's going on secularly in the sanctuary, that it's just not about shouting, but it's about giving some kind of substance and some kind of help and assistance to those in our communities.
Dr. Durrell Ward. I think Dr. Ward, I met you in, how long has it been? About 15, 20 years ago when he first came to Dayton. So you're probably not in age necessarily, but you're the senior of the pastor here around the table. What's your feeling, Dr. Ward, about the place of the black church in the urban community?
Wow. I think that the church is, I think that my colleagues have said it. I mean, it's a soul-saving station, but in order to save people's souls, we have to deal with their pocketbooks. We have to deal with their homes. We have to deal with their health. We have to, and you can't just save a soul. I mean, what have you saved? You know, just to save a soul and then send it back. You know, it's just, no, we've got to just deal with the community.
Okay. Dr. Carlton Williams, tell us what your thought is.
Well, the only thing I could add to that is, you know, historically you look at the church certainly as change agents in the social arena. So certainly I think that politically we could probably add something to it. There's some policy issues that impact the church that the church can impact through its membership. The complacency that I see in the church of the day is just ridiculous. When I think about how people died for the rights that we now enjoy.
Right.
You know, those change agents that came through the church, either be it through the social movement or through education. The apathy that we see today is, you know, I really don't know how to describe it. It's pathetic, right? And so certainly in conjunction with everything that my colleagues have stated, I think that, you know, those things as well, and it's a great place to be here with these gentlemen because they're change agents, and you see those things in their churches, but it's lacking in so many of our churches. You know, Dr. Harris alluded to it. It's more than just a Sunday gathering place, and that's what many of our churches have become.
You know, when I was thinking about this show, I said, well, I want to pick 4 gentlemen whose churches are really making an impact. Not to say a lot of the other churches aren't, but I know with the Dayton Weekly News, we constantly get things across our desk that talk about the various activities that are going on in your churches. And you gentlemen, your names came up first in my mind because I constantly see that you're feeding the needy, you're clothing people, you're doing all kinds. Some of you have CDCs that are doing other things in the community. But you know, every day, being in the newspaper business, I get a privy to a lot of information. And there's not a day passed that doesn't talk about some type of statistical data that shows that black people are on the bottom edge of almost anything. I joke sometimes and say, I think we have longer toenails than anybody else. I mean, we literally do. I mean, if it's negative, we got it. You know, and with that being said, what can we do as people who are followers of Christ in trying to change the what seems to be the mentality of the majority about black people? Any one of you can chime in.
I've addressed that issue, especially during Black History Month, which just passed, incidentally, yesterday. But I've talked about parenting. I've talked about the responsibility of finishing high school, that there ought not to be an alternative, that you at least ought to finish high school. If you don't have a high school diploma and then have a dream for the future, have a plan, then you're headed down the wrong road. So I try to talk to our young people to encourage them to avail themselves to the resources. Don't be ashamed if you find yourself needing assistance, help, be it homework or whatever it might be, that you reach out to a support system and you know, take you know, games are fine, you know, that's fine, television is fine, but some of the outright vulgarity of it all, the lyrics in the some of the rap music is not a positive thing. You know, calling girls bees and, you know, all that kind of stuff that we have a tendency to do in here. So I try to encourage them in new directions, you know, and at least on that end. And then parents have to, at least as I look at it, have to become parents again. You can't be your son's or daughter's friend. They have enough friends. They have, you know, the social networks, the Facebook and Twitter and all that. That's available to them, but it is your responsibility to provide a conducive place of home where you know your job. I heard something the other day. I don't know if it was a movie clip or whatever, but basically the clip said your job is to go to school. Right. The parent was saying, I'm going to work. You go to school and finish and do your homework and do these kind of things. So I kind of start with that foundation. And then also, you know, we haven't talked about it, but economically, you know, we give Michael Jordan more money, you know, $180 Jordans, and yet
Don't want
The
to buy
second
books.
thing, we can't even play ball. That's my thing. That's number one. But you spend 180, and you stand outside for 4 hours in the dark to be the first one to get to Jordan. You know, these kind of things. Just we got to change our priorities and look at the world from different lenses. You know. And,
one thing that I share with my church this month, but I also always say that the Black History Month is just not in February. We are black people, so Black History Month for us is every month. But I share with them that in order to know where you're going, you got to know in which you come from. Our foreparents fought for so much for us to have the luxuries and liberties that we have today, and we are continually dissing them by how we act behind Jordan tennis shoes, by how we act about our education. I got a great grandmother who died at 98 who only had a 3rd grade education. She would have loved to go off to school and finish, but yet she struggled to put her daughter through nursing school. We've lost our sense of struggle. We live in this generation now where we want everything handed to us. Our welfare rates are high, and I'm not against welfare, but I am against it because it sets up a generation to just sit at home and get something for free. When we need to struggle, we need to work, we need to apply ourselves. You weren't born stupid. You're only stupid by just sitting at home.
You know, I wanted to ask you, gentlemen, do you think the church should be a bully pulpit for injustice and eradication of many of the ills that plague our society? Because it seems like we've kind of gotten away from that. Those of us, and I'm probably the oldest person at this table. Boy, I can't believe it. But anyway, I remember as a kid in the 60s where the church was basically, I mean, you know, the civil rights movement was at its pivotal point during the 60s. And I remember pastors, I'm from Chicago, and I remember my uncle was a Baptist minister. And I remember we call him Reverend Stevens. He would, I mean, you know, he would bring it down about the importance of marching, because during that time, Martin Luther King came through Cicero, and it was all kind of upheaval and stuff. You know, get out there and make things happen for yourself. Have we gotten away from that because we've gotten comfortable? Do you think? I mean, not that we've got to, you know, do a lot of the things that was done in the 60s, but have we gotten away from the consciousness that we once had, making our young people understand that the struggle is not over and there are a lot of things that still need to be done?
Yeah, I think to some degree there is, surely there's some complacency in the church, but in many churches, quite frankly, pastors are afraid to speak to the issues.
Right.
A lot of memberships try to dictate to pastors even what they're going to preach. So to that extent, I think we have gotten away from it. I also think that some of the strategies that were used then need to be revisited. There's a lot going on. People will give us an opportunity to march, but when the march is over, then what? So we need to do some things. We need to get back to basics. You'd be surprised if you were to go through some of our churches, just to survey some of the churches, see how many people are not registered to vote. Right. I mean, you know, something that you would think is basic, but we know, you know, Dr. Jameson alluded to it. I mean, Dr. Hunt alluded to it. I mean, people died for us to have the right to vote, and now we won't even take the time to register to vote. There's a lot of manipulation going on in terms of politics, in terms of what's happening. Ohio being one of those states where the early voting was impacted, specifically because it impacted Democrats, primarily the party that would support President Obama. And you look at all of the states that would support President Obama have been, they call it the Obama law. That's what it is. I mean, so there's an awareness that needs to come from the pulpit. But to that extent, I mean, you know, let's just be frank about it. Pastors have to prepare themselves.
Right.
They have to stay on top of the issues, and then they've got to speak to the issues. So when you look at some of our churches, the pastors have not adequately prepared themselves and will fight people who do.
Right.
Okay, and so there is some fragmentation And if the leadership is fragmented, what do we expect from the people?
Well, you know, as I heard someone say just recently, the main hub of politics is in your community. Of course, the presidential politics is good, and of course, we all should vote for our favorite candidate, hopefully Barack Obama. But at any rate,
we can say it on this show.
It's my show.
Even we can say it on this show.
There you go.
You can't say it from the book.
There you go. You're right. You're right. But you know, the real crux of the things that touch the average John Doe, average John Q citizen, is things that happen in your home, that happen in your community. You know, you don't get your. I did a story, I think it was last year, about the beautification of the community. Because I just took a ride one day, and man, that grass, that tall, and up and down streets and stuff. So I wrote a story about it. The next week, the grass was cut. You know, because somebody saw it who could make a difference. And we have to hold our politicians accountable for the things that are going on. And I think that whole piece can start in the church, because the church is the largest greeting place in the community. More people in church on the weekend than there are any place else at any given time. So should the church be a basic thorn in the side of government, or thorn in the side of injustice? Because there's so many things going on in our community. There's no reason we should have homelessness in Dayton, Ohio, but we do. There's no reason our public school system should be below par in our Dayton, in our community. Should the church be on the forefront of speaking out against those type of things?
Well, let me say, go ahead. I'm sorry. I mean, we are called to speak the truth to power, and in most cases, our memberships trust us enough to be active to a degree. But I'll be honest with you, Don. I think that there's a lot of fear amongst people in general, just to step out on certain issues. You know, violence is a critical part of what's going on in the black community, right, particularly in Dayton. And it's a serious issue because there's retaliation or other matters, and people are fearful about saying who's doing what. I mean, in most cases, it's known, but there's a degree of fear. But getting back to your point, we have to. You know, the church used to be the center of the community.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I always like to say that the church ought to be always on the offense instead of the defense. You know, speaking to power issues. And we have the authority to do so, and we have the backing. And if we would work collectively together, because no one church, you know, the issues are too big. So we all could get together. But, you know, and sometimes we struggle as pastors among ourselves with who's going to be the leader, you know.
Who's out in front.
You know, so we fall short. If we can't get together, then our people are not going to get together.
Exactly.
But you know, it's you hit it on the head. I mean, there is power in numbers, and you know, if we just mobilize ourselves and do some strategic planning, and we can tackle some issues.
And I think that we have to shape individual consciousness. Don mentioned consciousness earlier, but it's our job to, I mean, we have the pulpit for our little individual group every Sunday, and it should be our job it is our job to help shape the individual consciousness, because people come there for a reason. Right. I mean, so stay at home, watch television, do something else. Sure. Unless we're gonna help shape their consciousness, unless we're going to give them something different to think about. Right. Why are we talking the same old stuff? Right.
because the issues change all the time, and the gospel is able to
deal
change
with each
with
one.
that, and deal, if we're willing to deal with it. But we have to help take the gospel and first save souls, and then change consciousness, because people are being tricked. People are being tricked. We, this kind of like, I'm just chilling. I'm just. What is that? What is that? We're allowing the culture to dictate who we are.
Yes.
And to tell us who we are, and to say that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. No, we need to shape the culture. And we have to prepare our people to be culture shapers, to make a difference, to stand up, to get their high school diploma. They don't have to go to college, but you do need to go to high school,
Sure.
and to
Get your GED.
and to change, to change the culture, because it's a mess right now. And as long as we're sitting back and everybody's scared, as Brother Harris says, the pastor's scared, and the people, but we can't be scared as pastors, because if we're scared, our people are scared.
Right.
Yeah, let me add one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before we go, because and this is really passionate, because our people sometimes don't know the power that they do have.
Yeah.
And it's our
That's
job
right.
to
That's
shape
right.
that. Because for
That's
instance,
right.
now our church, we're in the midst of some blight, right? And so we're trying to change that dynamic in our own environment. But the city and the county, now it's taken us over a year to purchase property that's blighted.
Right.
Okay, so we have irresponsible land and homeowners who purposely blight our community and walk away from it and don't do anything. And then when we try to purchase it to change the situation, the electorate says, no, you got to go through all of these hoops. Right. At some point we say, look, hell no, enough's enough. Okay, you need to expedite.
Did you say hell?
I did. I most certainly did. You got to change your policy.
That's right.
You got to change your policy to deal with this foolishness. Why do we
right.
continuously
That's
have
right.
to suffer through this? But we have to change the consciousness of the people who thought they had to take it, and now they know they don't.
Yeah, and that's what liberation is.
That's exactly what.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm probably at this table, with the exception of you, am in the worst community of all, being on the corner of 3rd and Gettysburg. But however, I'm in that struggle now, where you have a city who's saying all of these houses are condemned, foreclosed. There's arsoning taking places. People are just randomly burning down homes. They don't know who it is. Then they're trying to say it's the people in that neighborhood because they're tired of looking at boarded up homes. But then you have a church who's coming saying, look, give me the deed. I pay the back taxes. I buy the home from you because I want to change our community. I want to clean it up. I want to do a home that's vacant, renovated for senior living so people can live where they worship. I want to do these things. And you got to jump through all these loopholes, and you get transferred 4 or 5 times before you get to the right person. Then you have all these other papers that you got to go through. When we're saying we're trying to help the city out, the powers that be put the church on the defense, because when we're trying to play offensively with you, you don't want us, or you want to do it your way, when we're trying to help stop and alleviate some of the issues that's going on in the urban community.
But Pastor Hunter, I wonder, and often wonder, what would happen if all of a sudden Omega, Macedonia, and Believers, and Mount Olive, and Mount Enon, and Shiloh, you're talking about thousands of people, thousands of taxpayers, thousands of voters, would one day just say, we've had enough. We're going to become the change agent. You're going to fall in line with us. We're not falling in line with you. One of the problems, being a black man and have been black since I was
Since how long?
since day one, is that we can't get together.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, if
Absolutely.
all the
Yeah,
churches,
that's
without worrying about who's on first, who's gonna be the president, who's gonna be the
Exactly.
chairman of the board,
Yeah.
you get together and say, okay, this is our community.
Right.
And I don't care where you live.
Right.
You know,
That's right.
you can live in Inglewood, Kettering,
Don't
Center,
matter.
but it's still your community.
That's
Right.
You know, if our churches got together and said, and I don't care what denomination, whatever you want to be, and said, hey, we've had enough.
Yeah.
We're going to demand change, and not through going down to City Hall and threatening to burn it down. We're going to demand change by our numbers, showing that, hey, we have, and I'm sure it's a good 25,000 people represented in churches, maybe more.
Yeah.
These are 25,000 people that pay taxes. These are 25,000 people who will vote you out of office next year. These are 25,000 people who can make a change. I wonder what that would do to this town.
But that's what I was talking about, individual consciousness.
Right.
Until we wake up and realize the power that we have.
Right.
I mean, that's real liberation. Real liberation isn't civil rights. Real liberation is realizing the power that we have. And then we could join together and make a difference. But I think, but don't expect to join together and everybody go off singing happy.
Yeah.
No. That means, because when we do that, the enemy is going to come against it.
That's right.
And the enemy is already against it. That's the reason that it's not happening.
Right.
But we're really the enemy right now. And we got to wake up.
The man in the mirror.
It goes back to what was said at the table, Dr. Harris, when he said it's a fear issue. So many other things come into play where we have faith on Sunday. We have faith in our personal lives. We have faith in God spiritually. But when it comes to the secular side, we don't know how to still activate that faith. When you talk about going down to City Hall and saying, look, we're tired, the church truthfully will picket against us as pastor before they'll picket against the mayor.
You're right.
They'll close and lock doors on us for us saying, let's get together and go down and talk to City Hall and tell them, let's stop in on the City Hall meeting, get the NAACP, let's go down there and say enough is enough. So we have to move our church. That's one thing that I love about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He just didn't preach about the action of the civil rights or what was happening. He actually got involved. He made a conscious decision that if it's going to change, that change has to start with me.
Well, do you think a lot of that, and anyone can answer that, is the lack of education? Should we be an education agent also to try to inform and let our people know? Because, see, one of the problems that I find that exists in our community, and that is that there's a lack of historical awareness, in our communities. We didn't just get to this point.
Right.
And much of it is a reciprocity of sorts. I mean, we're kind of going back to where it used to be. So should the church be a historical agent to let people know that, hey, we once, I remember as a little kid coming to Dayton to visit. I remember when Dayton had businesses all up and down 3rd Street. I mean, you didn't even go downtown, really. You had everything going on. And now we can't even find a peel after 9 o'clock.
And that's why I said in the beginning, in order to know where you're going, you got to know where you come from.
Exactly.
We have to educate our parishioners of the struggle, and not just talk about, oh yeah, they struggled, but to deeply talk about what happened in the 70s and the 60s. But then you also parallel the struggles in Scripture, because there were times in biblical antiquity where persons struggled. The children of Israel struggled. So struggle is nothing new. We just have to parallel the lines to show that this was their struggle, this was the struggles of the 60s and 70s, but now in 2012 there is still a struggle. There's still the common thread of struggle, which is still racism. I'm the youngest, the newest in the city of Dayton, and did not know that Dayton was as racist as it is.
Yeah, but I will say this much, that it takes money to do that. And until, who has more money than the church?
Right.
And yet, we don't control. One of the things that I've always appreciated about Dr. Wood is what he's done with Omega in terms of the acquisition.
Right.
Right. So there's an acquisition there that, regardless of what he does, he controls what happens in that nucleus around his church and in that community, right? And economically, we've got to control things that come into our community.
and the church has enough money to do that, and if not individually, collectively. We were talking earlier, and one of the things that happened, I know where Dr. Hunter's from, where he pastored in Baltimore. Many years ago, I attended an economic summit, Bishop Bastow McKenzie in Cleveland, Ohio, right? In Baltimore, they came out of Prince George's County. They came out of what was called a collective banking agreement. Right. Where all of the churches went, they got together and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to interview banks. Okay? We're going to interview banks. Here's where we're going to put our money. If you reinvest in our community.
Right.
There are too many churches. I sat through in the last decade, and I've been preaching about this thing. It really troubles me because look at all of the new church construction. Yet nobody demanded minority contractors. Nobody demanded minority participation. It's mind-boggling. We control this stuff, but we won't spend our money or invest in our communities, in our people, and then reinvest in our own community.
We have a black credit union that our community don't even use.
Right.
We keep waiting for somebody else to do it.
We use it,
but it's selfishness, though.
It's
about, well, where's it going to benefit me?
Sure.
But we don't worry about that with other people.
We look your car.
Oh, no.
You know, we did excuse me, we did a story, some of you might have read it a few years ago, called Who's Building Black Churches? You remember that story? And we interviewed pastors and we did a little analogy. And there was only one black church that was built by a black contractor. And that was Zion AOH, Reverend Matthews.
Okay.
Bishop Matthews. Bishop Matthews.
Yeah.
The rest of them were built by white contractors. But see, keep in mind, do any of the white contractors drop any money in the plate on Sunday morning? No. I don't think I've seen none lined up out there.
That's the point.
You know, my whole thing is, my basic peeve, I guess, is economic development. I just believe in economic development. Because as I was saying, I don't think Dr. Ward was here at the time. I heard one minister, one deacon rather, from one of the larger churches brag about the fact that they had $5 million on deposit. That's good. But the problem with that is that where is that money going? That money goes to Washington Township. It goes to, because black people can't borrow no money right now. I'm telling you, as a businessman, you can't get 2 nickels. Right. But it goes to help build the northern and southern suburbs where many of us can't live or can't afford to live. And we get passed by. You know, a little business like mine can't borrow any money. The guy down the street, the only people can borrow money in our community is the Arabs and Asians, truthfully. You know, we have got to think ownership, and we've got to think about how, and it's got to be taught. Because I think we've lulled to sleep so long, we just don't even think about it. You know, guy ball you out and kick you out of the store, and you go back tomorrow and buy again. That's right. You know.
Well, you're absolutely right, Don. You know, as I ride up and down, we're now located on Salem Avenue, and you know, you go up and down Salem Avenue, and I mean, there's nothing there. No. Right. I mean, in my 20 years here in Dayton, I've seen a drastic change from when I first got here, just in 20 years. I mean, everything is closed up. There are no thriving business. We don't have a restaurant in a restaurant where you can take your family on the west side. Yeah. Everything is geared toward, you know, 675 out. Now Austin, you know, Austin Pike, they gonna hook that up. But we're left with nothing. I mean, we're left with nothing. So my thing is, as I'm starting to do some serious analysis, is that I believe we got to go back to the old landmark in terms of self-sufficiency. Right. They're not going to do it for us, so we have to do it ourselves. Right. You know, we have to prove Dayton wrong. You know, I was against that juvenile facility downtown. I mean, they didn't ask anybody about, but they're housing it for us, for our young people. Sure. You know, let's prove them wrong. Yeah. You know, let's not be occupants in the juvenile system. Let's stop. Let's start doing some positive things. You know, so that they can say, man, you know, we wasted all our money.
Yeah, you know, Doc, you know something though that let me just flesh it just a little bit more, and then that is that, I mean, nationally, okay, jails are being built on third grade reading scores across the country, okay. But people don't realize. I can recall about maybe 20 years ago, I think around that timetable when I saw for the first time privatized prisons go on Wall Street. I knew then that we were in major trouble. Prisons are profitable.
Yes.
Right.
Not only just to house folk, but for the goods that they produce. I mean, you got prisons in Pennsylvania producing bulletproof vests, armored stuff for our soldiers. I mean, the irony of prisoners now producing weaponry that protects police. All right? But you think about this. Look at what the government does, okay? If I'm a businessman and I can afford to put a business in a prison, I've got no overhead, I've got no paid benefits, I've got no sick leave plan. They ain't calling in.
Right.
I mean, you know, I got a ready workforce, and I'm paying them $5 an hour, and they loving it.
Is it $5 an hour?
Maybe $5, depending on where you are.
I heard $3. I heard $3. You know,
but look how profitable it is to keep people incarcerated.
Right.
All right. And so who's being incarcerated? Doc said it. Our kids. Okay. So when you look at the impact of our communities, you got to look at the thing that impacts our communities. Our kids are being destroyed from vital and viable jobs because of drugs usage, violence, or any of those other things that displace them before they even get to the workforce. They're not even old enough to get displaced before they get there.
And I had a conversation recently with a parishioner who's just like any middle-aged man in any of our congregations, and he has a 17-year-old grandson. And he used to bring him to church, and then he got into trouble, and he just, he's trying to help raise him, and he just grown, and he murdered somebody, and now he's got 49 years, that was 46 years to life.
My God.
So it's 46 years before he can even get out.
Yes.
His whole
Life is gone.
Before it began.
It's wasted life. But my point is that what better service can we do as leaders to our parishioners than to help save their grandchildren's life?
Yes. Right.
The people who pay us, bottom line,
That's exactly right.
is that man, that middle-aged man. Those are the people who tithe, and those are the people who put money in there. And what can we do to help them? Well, let's help their children.
Help their children, but also help them as well, because it was also said at this table, which has been a great conversation, that those middle-aged grandparents and young adult parents are trying to be friends of their children. And we can't just blame the child for the wrong turn or the stuff that they got into. We got to also hold the parents accountable for not being the parent. I wish I would, even at 30 years old, tell my father, who pastors in Texas, or my mother, who is a VP of a junior college, what I'm not going to do, even at 30. Sometimes I have to ask my dad, do you run my house from Texas? But now, as pastors, you ask your members, well, where's your son? Where's your daughter? I saw him a few weeks. I hadn't seen him. Oh, they didn't want to come this morning. No, that's not an option. We have to instill in them that Scripture is true. Spoil the child, spare the rod, hate your child. You literally hate your child when you aren't disciplining them as a parent should. I wish I would have tried to call 911.
And the Bible also says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Right.
So that's a very important scripture, because it tells us that if you put it in,
it's going to stay.
It's going to stay. It's going to stay. Can I share something?
Sure.
Just a very valuable thing that my father in ministry taught me. He said, you have to raise your children so somebody else can love them. They ain't your friends, but you have to raise them so somebody else can love them, because they ain't gonna put up with all that foolishness.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think there's frustration, and among our people, because we see, as you've already alluded to, Don, the statistics that we lead in everything negative.
Right.
And so our young people are looking at, well, what's the use? Why should I do A, B, and C when there are no jobs available.
Sure.
Or, you know, my condition doesn't change. My environment didn't change. You know, it's the same old, same old. And this is where, as Hunter has alluded to, we have to give them that hope, that expectation of hope that things can change, but you got to work at it.
Sure.
It's not going to just happen because you want it to happen, but that, you know, just like, you know, losing weight, you got to go, you got to do something, you know. So, but I think that frustration level that we see, you know, I'm sort of old school in terms of, you know, when I see kids walking down the street with their pants all the way down here, you know, this. I mean, I hate to be a hater, but you know, it's just disrespectful. I mean,
man.
come on, Doc, pick your pants up. You know, respect your teachers. You know, there's no respect for authority. You know, this. I was at a couple basketball games, and you know, the cats won't even take their hat off now. But you know, listen.
But
As bad as it is, it's better than the United States than third world countries. You know, so but that's to the degree of frustration level.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was watching a program on television. Well, what it was a news shot from L.A. They had some gang violence and some kids got killed, and they were at this boy's funeral. And most of the guys in their head, now they sitting in church with their caps on. I mean, isn't our responsibility to say, young man,
I don't want
appreciate it, but take your cap off.
I don't want to blame the angel of that house, but that was his job at that moment. Since we're on the topic of subject, anything that happens in Macedonia, they know no hats are going to be worn. I don't even like. God gave us tear ducts, so why you have to wear shades? If you're going to cry, that's a human emotion. Right. It's okay if somebody see you shed tears. Even to the extent when I see too many men sitting and a lot of women standing because of lack of space for an individual's funeral. Brothers, it's time to relinquish your seat. It goes all back into what we're talking about. There has to be that respect that we were taught that we must instill in even the grandparent, because the new grandparent is 40 years old.
Or less.
Or less. So we have to instill that in the grandparent and the parent. And we can't just blame the child for everything. Now, there's some things that the child just did on his own and put him or herself in that situation. But we have to shape the family holistically and get them to understand X, Y, and Z.
Let me take a radical departure from that point of view and say this. The church has to be relevant. Right. The church has to be relevant. And if you're dealing with unchurched, you're dealing with an unchurched generation, then what's the relevance to them, in this case, a hat or pants or any of the other things? It's not relevant to them, right? It's not relevant to them. Now, I just came out of D.C. a week ago, and I was in church, mega church. More mega churches in PG County than anywhere in the country, but mega church. Every other brother in there had a hat on. Every other brother. Baseball cap. Every other brother. But praise God.
He's in
there. Like I've never seen before out of the people who don't wear hats, who wear suits and ties. You see what I'm saying? So the relevance as they see it, right? The relevance as they see it, right? So while I'm agreeing with Dr. Hunter, okay, in his house, okay, but I've got to have, okay, enough flexibility to say, but that ain't his house. This is somebody else's house.
Right.
And as long as they praising God and doing the mandates of God, okay. So I'm saying that how relevant is the church? Okay, how relevant is the church? Because I can't make people see what I see. Consequently, I ain't gonna make them do what I do. But I know how I was raised, and I know the values that were instilled in me. Okay, and those are the values I'm gonna operate by. Men get up. Men open doors. Chivalry is not dead. Those are the values I'm going to operate by, right? But now when it comes to my sons, that's a whole other world.
And his point is valid because yes, they're the standards I was brought up in.
Yeah.
But yes, in Baltimore, before coming here, and I said it in the sermon, and the people like got crazy, leave him alone that his pants are sagging. He does not know, he must be taught. He will not come, he must be brought. Let him get in first.
Right.
And then sooner or later, he's going to look around for a while, and he's going to see a difference.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said, but I want to bring one thing to the table before we, the church has to be relevant to these times. But that same kid that comes to church on Sunday morning or whenever he goes, with his pants sagging and a baseball cap, also is that same kid who Monday morning when going out and look for a job. When he goes out and look for a job, because he thinks it's okay, he walks in with his pants sagging and his baseball cap, and he doesn't get the job. More of our children, young people, are being X'd out of the system because they have not learned how to work within this system. I mean, you still got the man has the job. So if he say a suit and tie, then a suit and tie is what you got to put on.
But that goes back to our subject, the role for the black church in the urban community. Many of us at this table, and I know that my fellow colleagues do this as well as myself, we have those kind of workshops and those. Everything can't be put in because we dealing with a new church. So everything can be put in that hour to hour and 30 minutes.
Right.
But we offer those workshops and those job opportunities on Saturdays and other days of the week where businesses come in, job fairs, and let people interview. But before they come in, we take that time to instill into those. The church is playing so many roles in the urban community because on this side we're teaching money management, on this side we're teaching marriage counseling, and on this side we're teaching children how to go fill out an application for a job, how to keep your resume current, and how to fill out your college application. So we're playing this strong role in the community that is often sometimes overlooked. But this session has been great because it allows us to articulate that, yes, there's some issues, there's some negativity of the black people, but I just believe that we're on the rise, not because President Obama is in the White House, but because we are doing what we're supposed to do as leaders to the black community.
Let me say one thing in conjunction with that, and that is that the brothers at this table, one of the dilemmas for the black church in an urban setting is the inability to trust another pastor. See, so now, Dr. Hunter's saying, if Dr. Harris is teaching education workshop and Dr. Hunter is doing marital counseling and Dr. Ward is doing stay in school, I'm not afraid to send my people there.
At all.
Okay. Historically, we've been afraid. No one church can have all of the resources.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so what we don't do is we don't share the resources and we don't share the wealth because our kids get destroyed before they even get into the ball game. Okay? We got to get them into the ball game because I can tell you this: if they are lucky enough and blessed enough to get beyond this game and get to Microsoft, then they can go to work with their pajamas.
That's right.
You got to get right. Before you get destroyed, okay, you can do all of those things, but not without an education and not without the training.
And I want to say that hard work is, I mean, it's the ingredient that can't be missed. I mean, and it's something that I learned coming up through the system is, my parents taught me morals and values and such, but also there was a dean at United, and I saw John Moore at work here in the city, and I remember John Moore was chairing some scholarship committee, and he talked about, it was like 10 years before that they could raise the money, but now they have millions of dollars that they're giving to graduating high school students. But somewhere along the line in 10 years, somebody had to sit through the meetings, go through this, go through that, but hard work does have an outcome.
No doubt.
And I think we fail don't
Right,
understand
right,
his
right.
steps.
Right.
That's the good thing. You know,
Microwave
it
generation.
takes, yeah, they want it
Right.
right now.
Right now.
But you got to go through these steps. You know,
Yes,
you might
right.
call them hoops. Or why we got to do? Well, it's what you got to go through.
Right.
You know, we
Right,
went through
absolutely.
it. You know, you see the glamour, but you,
Right.
it was the struggle. It's the struggle.
That's right.
And we
Nobody watches
got to
that.
do it.
Right.
We got
That's
to go
right.
through it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let me
Well,
say this, Don.
okay.
All of the research, all of the data says this much, and this needs to be said before we leave here, that without the church, it will not be successful.
Right.
That's right. Okay, so that much we know, which is probably what keeps us on the wall doing what we do. Because without the church, it's just not going to be successful.
Amen. I just want to go around the table right quick and give each one of you an opportunity to just say, what are some of the things you're doing? You got to keep it short because I think we got about 5 minutes. What are you doing at Believers?
One of the things that we do is I try to encourage the youth and young people. We have Youth Sunday. That gives them an opportunity to stand in front of the congregation to build confidence and trust. We have a scholarship committee. I'm not bragging, but I am in a sense.
Brag that.
We gave laptop computers to our graduates, to each graduate. Now, we just didn't hand it to them. They had to fill out an application. They had to write an essay and tell us, you know, what they're going to do with that computer and their dreams and aspirations. And then we raised the money and gave them laptops. So we try to invest in our young people. We have some mentoring programs. You know, of course, we have what we call Care and Share, which is benevolent. You know, we with our little resources, we try to minister to our people and the community as best we can. So that's what we try to do. Yeah.
Dr. Hunter.
At Macedonia, we have several programs. We have a CDC, MCDC, that looks out for those in the community. We offer rental property, under the rate in which we should be given so that persons will have a decent home in which to live in. We're now tapping into re-entry programs. We have a program called MEOT, Men Enlightening Our Youth of Today, where we're helping men be men.
That's great.
We also do the resume, those type of things. We, too, invest in our youth. Every graduate who graduates after they do the essay and all of that, they leave the church with $1,000, $500 for going to school. The other $5 they get after the first semester when they bring back a C average. So we're doing that. Also, we do a turkey giveaway on Thanksgiving. This year we served 210 families with turkeys and everything they need for Thanksgiving. Clothes giveaway, benevolence to help those in the community. But last but not least, April 7th of this year, we talked about that non-traditional church. We're launching a Saturday worship at 6:30 p.m. to speak truth to power into this young present generation, to give them a worship experience, not just for them, but for those who work throughout the week and they can't get there on a Sunday morning, traditional times. We're offering this to invest in the urban community because most importantly, their souls is the most important thing.
Thank you. We got about 2 minutes. Dr. Ward.
I'm just going to say that we're doing a master plan right now. We have 30 acres of property across the street over there, and we have a master plan. We've worked with Black architects, and we're trying to do everything. You know, I look at it as from the community. We are the community, and let's use the community. Let's benefit all the way around. That's hard work, but it makes a difference. And so we're going to use Black architects, Black construction and such, but we're building a community center.
Yeah, I think for us, where we differ in addition to all of those things is our Mount Olive One Stop. We have an HIV ministry where we offer HIV testing Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We've got a pantry last 2 weeks of every month. Last year we fed about 8,000 people. We've tested over 2,000 people. We're changing lives, but we just don't change those lives. We minister to those lives, and our congregation has changed to embrace all of those people. And so truly what we're doing is what I believe we ought to be doing, and that is the business of transformation.
we're certainly trying to acquire some property and transform the community as well. So that's just some highlights of some of the things.
Fantastic. I really would like to thank my guests. I think this is one of the best shows we've had so far.
It's the second show.
He said it's only the second show.
No. We've had several. But I'd like to thank Dr. Harris. I'd like to thank Dr. Hunter, thank Dr. Ward, and Dr. Williams for being our guests. And remember, go to your church this weekend and worship God.
Yes, yes.
And we all join together to make this community a much better place to live. And watch our show each week, News from a Different View, and go out and get your Dayton Weekly News. Thank you very much.
Amen.